Good morning. Welcome to Davita's Stampin' Spot. As always, I was ready early and now I'm late. Yeah, I'm consistent that way, I guess. Checking to make sure we're live. If you're watching this, I can guess you are not planning on going down to the parade today, or you would be down there right now trying to get a good spot. All right, I'm trying to see. There we go. Good deal. All right, I think I'm live. All the tips and tricks here. All right. So I've had some people ask about die cut machines, and we've actually had a lot of questions with the new mini coming out. And so I wanted to address some issues and give you some tips and tricks. And hopefully this will help you have a very successful time using your machine. If you do have questions, please type them below. I'm hoping they are going to show up so that I can see them. I never know whether that's going to happen or not. For some reason, it's not showing up on my feed. All right, there we go. Good. And I think I'll see comments, I hope anyway. All right. And now I got sound up. Yeah, get that down. All right, I guess I'm not awake yet this morning. So I ordered a brand new machine. And so I took stuff out of the box about an hour ago. I'm going to even just start with how to put your machine together, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to change it so you can see what I'm doing. I hope. Let's see. There we go. All right. So it came out of the box. It looks like this. Here's your two openings for that. Then there's a package that has your plates. So this is plate 4. This is what you are going to use when you use our 3D embossing folders. Plates 3 are your clear plates that we use many times. 2 is what you use if you're going to die cut stuff. And then 1 is your base that you use all the time. The handle comes off during, or is not included with the machine when you have to put it on. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, so they give you an Allen wrench, a screw, and a washer. So I'm going to put the washer on the screw like that. So you're going to place your handle in there, then drop your screw in. I'm going to take the Allen wrench and screw it in. And that's all you have to do to add your handle. It's like a watch pot never boils with water, right? So it'll never tighten as you have to watch me spin. I will tell you that over time, this may loosen a little bit. So keep your Allen wrench somewhere so that you can tighten it if needed. A lot of times I'll have Kent tighten it for me because his grip is so much stronger than mine is. So I take my Allen wrench, put it back in the little Ziploc bag, and then I have a drawer right here on my desk. And I keep it there, and I know that it's there. So anytime I need to tighten it, I can. And then they've given us a nice little rubber insert to put over the top there. So it looks nice. Easy to assemble. And then we've got our plates like this for our base. All right, so let's talk about these plates just a little bit. It does come with a guide with care instructions and stuff like that in all the languages, since we're worldwide now, but our English is on the first one. Like I said, if you're using an embossing folder that is thicker, like this, Okay, here's the thick. Here's the thin. Can you see the difference? How much difference there is? So first, for the thick one, you would use your base, your folder with your paper in it, and then number 4. And you crank it through, right? If I use the thin folder, I again would put my paper in. And I'm going to use these a little bit later, so that's why I'm not running it all the way through. So for this one, you need both plates that are 3 to run it through. Okay, so for a thin one, you need 2 of these because this is so thin. If you're using the thick one, you just want number 4. You'll lay it on your base plate. Like I said, you use your base plate every time. And then you would crank it through and it would do your impression. If we want to cut, we're going to do 1 and 2. This gives a little more depth so that our pieces will cut. Then you're going to lay your clear plate down. So 1, 2, 3, paper, die, and number 3 again, and crank it through. And then you'll have your die cut image cut out. These edges are beveled. I don't know if, I think you can see that on there. The reason they bevel these is so that it will feed through the machine. So if you're making the sandwich with these and your die cut, they have suggested, and especially with the mini, and I'll talk about the mini here in just a little bit, but when you make your sandwich, you actually want it to be like an E, a capital E. So we're going to put your base plate here, 1 and 2 together. It's kind of hard to see, sorry. This. And then you're going to lay your plate down. Then these 2 are going to be back just a little bit. Then this one's going to go back up even with the top, so that as it feeds through, it can grab right away. Now let me show you with the mini. So with the mini plates, the same thing. They're beveled. You want to make an E, so these 2 are level, even, and your image on the inside, your folder or whatever, is back just a little bit. So as it feeds through, this beveled area can actually give just a tiny bit, and it helps the machine grip the plates to pull it through. Now, some people are having some trouble with the mini, and the reason is this mini, I've been told, is one of the best mini machines on the market. When they designed it, notice it's just like our big one. It has, and you're going to tell I use mine a lot, it's very beat up. Here's my base, okay? Then my plates for cutting. This one for inserting the embossing folder. And this one is for the check. This is for the thick and this is for the thin. Honestly, I don't use the embossing folders a lot on here, but it also tells us this is for the standard embossing folder right here. And this one is for your 3D embossing folder. All right. So let's say we want to use, I thought I grabbed them here. Okay, so this is my thin. So I would put number 1 down, then my embossing folder. So it's going to be back just a little ways because it's the inside of my capital E. And then we're going to put this plate on the top and then run it through. Now, when you first get it, it's going to be very tight to run through because they want it to do a really good job of grabbing and running through. And so that you're going to have a machine that lasts for a really long time. Because we know with any machine, it loosens as it's used. So they're making sure at the very beginning that it's very, very tight. So if I want to cut, I'm going to do my base 1, my cutting. Look at that thing. Isn't that well loved? Oh my gosh. So well loved. Then my paper, my die, and then your top plate. So I'm going to make an E with the middle plate back just a little bit. So this front one can push down just a little bit as the grippers inside the machine start cranking it through. Okay. I probably jumped ahead a little bit from my notes. Both of these machines have 4 rubber pads on the bottom. If you are trying to cut and this thing slips at all, now I have a nice good surface, so mine stays put. You might consider standing up as you crank, because as you hold here and crank, you're holding it in one place so this doesn't shift and move. All right. Okay. I'm going to try and do it this way. And you're going to know, here, I'll show you. Here's my crank. Okay. So I'm over here. All right. So we're going to go back. These are so nice and clean. Never been used. All right. So back with the big shot. I'm going to lay my clear plate down. And to be honest, I am going to grab one of my older ones because I love to keep them nice and clean. So here is one that's been used a few times. I'm going to lay my paper on here. And I've got one of my stylish shaped dies. And then I want to make sure it stays in place. So one of my team members gave me this. It's a Post-it label and cover up tape. And it works wonderful because it holds it in place, but it does not tear your paper. So I'm going to take, so I've got my base. This is my second piece. I'm going to move it back just a little bit. And then I'm going to put the one on top. And I'm going, oh, I forgot my second plate. Sorry, guys. Back up. 1, 2 for cutting. 3. And this one's going to be back just a tiny bit. Then my paper. And then this one's going to go right on top so it's even. So can you see that? It's like an E. My 2 outside pieces are even, and the middle one is in just a little bit. I'm going to crank it through. And pop it out. Pull my tape off. Look how nice that works. Now, a lot of this, and I have to admit, I did this for a while until I learned not to. I'll lay this down again. One of the nice things about our machine is it cuts both directions. So let's say I'm cutting something that's really detailed. All right, I'm going to line it up. I'm going to move that back just a little bit. Have my E, crank it through. All right, so now you're like, oh, I'm not sure it cut all the way. I want to cut again. Do not ever do this and start cranking right back through. That is going to warp your plates. Okay, let me show you what happens. Look at that nice bow. Can you see that? That's because some of my customers at classes have gone back and forth. So you have 2 options. Pick this plate up, flip it over, and come back all the way through. Or something that I do quite often, I just pick the whole plate up, turn it around, and run it through again. And that way, it's going to keep your mats flat. Another thing I do is I try to flip the bottom over because it's going to get warped as well if you're always running it through the same way. Now, I do keep the same one on the bottom all the time because it gets beat up, but then your top stays nice. Then if it does get damaged with people going back and forth all the time, so see, I'll just turn it around and go back. Then I just have to get rid of 1 plate instead of 2. Now, I know a lot of people have talked about putting them in the oven, warming them up a little bit and flattening. I know that does work. I have to be honest, I have never tried it, but I know people do that. All right. So let's move on. Let's do some embossing. So that's your, oh, another thing I wanted to show you. I did watch another demonstrator, and she said that if you're having some trouble with your dies not cutting all the way through this way, try flipping it over. Now, I wouldn't do this all the time because this is going to put an impression on the top plate probably. But you can flip it. See, there it goes. Oh, my nice Virgin Queen plate has a circle. But you can run it up that way too. So if yours is getting older, you might try that. Another thing you can do if your image is not cutting really well or not coming out very well, is use some wax paper. So I just get my wax paper from the kitchen. And we'll cut out, grab a piece of paper here. Let's say I want to cut out this butterfly. So I've got 1 and 2 because I'm cutting. My plate 3, I'm going to put my paper, a piece of wax paper, and then my plate on the top, and I'm going to crank it through. Now the plastic from the wax paper will help kind of lubricate this so it gets a little bit of a waxy film, so it's much easier for the pieces to come out. Okay, I've used this butterfly a lot. So there we go. And then if you're very frugal and you like to use everything, then you have a butterfly that's made out of the wax paper that's beautiful. And then I just take one of my old paper pumpkin boxes and I put the little brushes in it. And you just brush the butterfly and all your pieces will come out. Okay. And yep, this one didn't, I should have run it through twice because that die needs a little bit of extra, but you can see these popped out really well. So anytime your die is not working really well, I would encourage you to use the wax paper. Now you can, let's see, we'll see how good my hands are doing today. I apologize, still fighting this silly cold. All right. Yeah, now cut it through and I'll be able to pop those pieces right out. So while I'm talking about this die, when you are making like these butterflies and you know you're going to adhere the whole thing, you want to get some of the adhesive sheets that we have. So we sell them. I will post below what page they're on because I'm drawing a blank right at the moment, but I'll do it up here. So I cut my paper, I cut the, sorry. So there's this waxy paper on the back, pull that off and place this adhesive sheet directly on your cardstock. Now you can, of course, make your adhesive sheet a little bit tinier if you want, just because you're probably not going to cut out on the edges, but I always want to make sure I have adhesive there. All right, so now we're going to put my butterfly on there. And the reason I'm doing this, it's going to make it like it's a sticker. If I don't have the adhesive sheet, then I have to take this butterfly and I'm going to, I should have popped out all the pieces. That's going to bother me. I'm going to have to either take my sponge with my liquid glue and daub glue all over this, or somehow get adhesive on here, which there are ways to do that. And I think I've talked about it on my lives before. If you don't know the other ways, let me know and I'll show you. But the adhesive sheet is going to make this like a sticker. So I've got 1 and 2 because they're for cutting. I've got my clear plate and I'm going to move it back just a little bit. Then I'm going to put 3 on top. And we're going to run it through. And now, and I'm going to do it twice. And I would recommend that almost always when you're doing adhesive sheets, because it's got to cut through the paper, excuse me, as well as the adhesive sheet. Okay. Now, when I take this apart, and to be honest, I'm going to do it one more time. I happen to pick a die that is kind of getting crabby. Doesn't seem to cut quite so well. Okay, now I can tell it worked well. So when I pop this out, I'm going to grab, I should be using my take a pick tool because we don't sell these little picks anymore. Our dies always have little spots that you can pop to help get the paper out. And now when I pull this off, let me show you. And what's neat is as you pull this off, it will pull off a lot of the little pieces for you. See how it's pulling it off? And now this is a sticker, so I can stick it directly on my card base or my scrapbook page. All right. So that's cutting. Let's talk about the embossing folders just a little bit. So for the embossing folders, we do not need two. I can get two out of the way. Let me go back to my nice folds. All right, so I've got my, where'd it go? Here's my standard one, okay? I can put it in here. Do not put your paper clear up here at the seam, because as you can see, there's a gap there where the pattern isn't as a part of the embossing folder. I always encourage my ladies to spray with some water. So I just took an old eye lens cleaner bottle and spritz it with water. You don't need a whole lot, but what this does is it loosens the fibers on your paper. So as you run it through, you're going to get a deeper impression. All right, so I've got one, and then I've got a 3 on the bottom that I'm going to put my embossing folder, and I always put the hinge area towards the machine so that it goes through first, then my clear plate, and we're going to just run it through. If you want a really deep impression, I would turn this around and run it through again. And now you've got, my fingers will work, this really pretty embossed paper. Now it does feel a little damp, but I promise you 5 minutes and you're good to go, if even that long. Now, if you want that impression to be just a little bit darker, let me show you a trick. What I'm going to do is I look for the side that has the Stampin' Up! Logo on it. And let's show this over. Having a big shot there makes it a little tricky. Okay, we'll go like this. So this is the side with the greeting, and I'm going to add some ink to it. Doesn't have to be real dark. And what this does is it just magnifies the embossed impression. Okay. So I'll grab my paper. I lay it usually on this side away from the ink so I can kind of line it up so it's straight, and then close it. We're going to do 1 and 3, put this in the middle, back up my 3 here just a little bit because it's a center piece, and then put the top 3 right on the top, even with 1. And then I'm going to crank it through. And look at the difference. Can you see how much more distinct the impression is? If you want it even more distinct, use a little darker ink instead of the same color ink, and it'll make it even more obvious. All right, so that's with my standard. Now let me show you, sorry, with the 3D. Now you're going to know 3D because they are thick. You're going to feel that thickness. All right, so I'm going to spritz it with water. And I'm going to go ahead and add the ink because I think it just makes the images pop so much better. And just to show you how different they'll look, I'm also going to put it on the other side just to see what it looks like. All right. So then I'm going to lay my paper on there. I've got one. Now this is my 3D. So I'm only going to use one and I'm going to use 4. So this is my middle of my E. So I'm going to make sure it's back just a little bit. Then I'm going to line 1 and 4 up and run it through. All right, you ready? Look at that image. Isn't that gorgeous? And then just for you to see, it even puts some color then on the back side too. But this is your pretty side. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? All right, now I've done all that talking and haven't looked at my notes once. So let me see what I forgot to share with you. Oh, one of the tips that they gave on the Stampin' Up website is if you are using the mini, let me switch over to the mini. If I can find it. Okay. So it looks just like our regular Big Shot die cut machine. If you're having trouble with it not cutting, so normally for cutting, you would do 1, 2, your paper, your die, and your other clear is how you would do it. Okay. Some of the new machines are really tight. If you've got a really tight one in the future, you're going to be really glad, because then as it loosens, it's still going to work really, really well. But right here at the very beginning, if this is too tight and you just really struggle cranking it through, replace 1 with 3. I'm going to make sure I have, yeah. It is just a tad bit smaller, but it will maybe give you just that little bit of extra leeway to run it through. Okay, so it's still cut it out. And of course, I still grab that butterfly that's having issues. But you can do that. So if it's really, really tight, if you've got one of the brand new ones and it's real tight, you might try the 3 instead of the 1. All right. I think that is all my tips and tricks. Let me see if I have any questions. I know. Hey, Deb, good to see you. And Cindy, glad you're watching. All right. I don't see any questions. If I have not answered your questions, man, like I said, I know I've had some people asking me for some assistance. Please put the question in the comments below, or text me, email me, personal message, whatever, because I want to make sure you're able to use your machine and you're really happy with it. This mini is, well, right now you can get it for half price. The sign up deal is $175 worth of product that you choose, and you can get this mini in white or one of our brand new colors, boho blue, for $129. So $175 worth of stuff and a machine for $129, and it's free shipping. So that's going to save you even more. Or if you already have a die cut machine, you don't think you would use the mini, you can get $175 worth of product for $99 plus tax. And the $129 is plus tax as well. If you're interested, reach out to me. I would be happy to talk to you about it. I hope that's answered your questions, and I hope you're having a fabulous day. Where do you put the magnetic piece? All right, if you have one of the magnetic plates, so let me grab my Big Shot again. Stampin' Up made some magnetic plates and they were not happy with them. So they discontinued them because it didn't meet their standard of quality. But if, let me see if I can find mine. If you have one, it probably looks like this. Okay. One thing I did was I took a number 2 die adapter plate that I had, and I attached it to this one so that it was a little bit more sturdy. But this would take the place of your number, let's see, for the big machine, your number 3 plate. So you would put your base on. Oh my gosh, I cleaned my, here we go. All right. So if you have the magnetic, you'd put the base down, you'd put the magnetic, then you would put your paper and your die, and then just one clear plate over the top like this, and run it through. So this takes the place of your 3 plate. Okay. And if you would, all right, let me back up. Sorry. If you have the magnetic and you haven't attached it, let me grab this one. Okay. So you have the magnetic plate. It looks like this. It's just the single image. You do 1 and 2 because you need the 2 for the depth. Oh, see how warped that is? All right, let me see. Let me grab something here. Okay, so then I put my paper and my die, and it's going to be a little tricky if it's already starting to warp, but you're going to crank it through like this. So the magnetic plate takes the place of the clear on the bottom. If you have attached it to the number 2 plate, so that's what I did here. I attached the magnetic to the number 2 to try and keep it flat longer. Then you would not use 2 because you've already attached it here. So you'd have 1, 2's taped to 3. Then you'd put your paper, your die, and one more number 3 and crank it through. I hope that answers your question. The advantage with the magnetic, if you have one, is that it will hold your dies in place. Stampin' Up! Designed one where there is magnet all through it, and you can see it on this one. See, that's all magnet. But the issue with it was that the edges would not stay flat with repeated use, which they were very upset because, of course, they test them a lot. So the magnetic would hold your die in place. So see, look, it stays. So then you wouldn't have to use your tape or your sticky note or something to hold it in place. So the magnetic was nice because you wouldn't have to use the tape. I hope that answers your question, Cindy. So it just holds your die. So if you have one of these and you're the old Big Shot, you can use it. It'll hold it and then run it through. And again, it takes the place of the clear on the bottom. Okay, well, I think that's it. Again, please let me know if you have any questions. That teacher in me always comes out when I feel like there's ways I can help people. So hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope it's answered your questions. And I will see you next Monday at 8 o'clock for another Facebook Live. Have a fabulous Wednesday. And if you're from Kansas City, go Chiefs. That parade's going to be something. I'm going to be watching it from my recliner. I'm not standing in the cold for hours. I'm too short. I wouldn't be able to see anyway. Thanks and have a great day.